Welcome to Manifesting a Life. 1990 was a major year for me. I had, 5 aunts and uncles that died. My future father-in-law died. Both my parents died. It's like, last one here, turn out the lights. Let's see what else happened. Since Paul and I were deciding to get married, I decided I needed to sell my house. He had a house that he was trying to sell. It had been on the market for about a year, and it was still there. So I decided I needed to get busy to sell my house. The first day I listed it in the paper, it was taken. We closed in 2 weeks. I had to be out of there in 2 weeks. So that year I ended up moving twice. And then my future husband was laid off right before the wedding. And then later in that year, I quit my job and moved to where he was. And of course, a happy note of the year was we got married. There was a major event every month. So all these events in 1 year, my stress should have been way over the top. But I seemed to be okay. I got through it fine. At least I thought, until about 2 years later, then a depression hit me. I had a feeling it had something to do with what had happened 2 years before. And my now husband thought that it might have something to do with my relationship with my father. Now, I'm not saying my father was a bad man. No, he was a really good father. It's just that he was a 50s, 60s father. In other words, he was a good provider. He provided for his family. He worked hard. But he was real distant from his children. He didn't really involve himself much in the children's lives. So he was a distant father. And he was also very much of German descent, which meant that he had a belief in a strict German upbringing. Now, my husband, being a smart man, he knew better than to try to talk me into this or to try to work with me himself. So he suggested I go see a psychologist. So I did. I went and talked with a psychologist, and she never really got into this relationship thing. So I don't know why. But at the same time, I was also presented with the opportunity to take a class on grief at my church I was attending. So I decided to go to that to see if that would help any. And so we went and talked about the 5 stages of grief. And I asked the leader there if depression was part of grieving. And he told me that he had been told that depression was unacknowledged anger. And I thought, well, I don't feel anger. I don't feel like I've got anger in me. But that's why it's unacknowledged. Now, the reason my husband felt like it was my relationship with my father was involved in this somehow, he knew about my background, that I'd been real sick when I was 16, and when I finally found a doctor that could diagnose the problem, I was down to 86 pounds. Well, when I was on the road to recovery with this, I remember we had one meeting with one of my doctors in his office with me, my mom, and the doctor. And he was very blunt with my mom. He said that they have determined that this ailment in children was often related to a relationship problem between the child and the mom. Oh, my mom did not like that at all. And I always felt like that was not right. You know, I felt like I had a really good relationship with my mom. So I didn't understand what the problem was there. Well, the medication seemed to help me a lot with that end of things. I ended up going off to college. And it's funny, when I went off to college, things seemed to clear up. I seemed to feel better. And then that first summer, between my freshman and sophomore year, I went back home and I had another flare-up. And that was when I realized I could not come back home. And it also slowly dawned on me, it was a relationship problem, but it wasn't with my mother, it was with my father. And that's why I want to emphasize that he wasn't really a bad father or anything. It wasn't that, but you know, he had a way of expressing love, which was gift giving, and my mode of receiving love is through words. And so we just didn't match up real well there. But I know he did as good as he could. Well, back to the psychologist. I realized in this relationship with my psychologist that it was going to be up to me, really. And so I bought some workbooks on accessing your inner child and started working through them. Now, there was one exercise in the workbook that said to write a letter to somebody you're angry with. Now, remember, I've already discovered I don't feel any anger. I don't. So I didn't know who to write it to. It's like, who am I angry with? I'm not angry with anybody. But, you know, your body knows, your mind knows. Back there somewhere, it knows. And so what popped into my head was, oh, I'll just write a letter to my dad. Boy, did I have a lot to write down. It got to where I couldn't write fast enough. And so I just put the letter aside and just started talking to him. Said, okay, this is the way I feel. This is what happened. This is, what I needed, and I wasn't getting it from you. And I was all mad and upset and everything. Just let it all out. Well, after I did that, I felt great. I felt lighter. I did a load of laundry, more than a load. I did all the laundry. I mopped the floors, did the dishes, went for a walk. I had all this energy. It's like, wow. So that's the way I was supposed to feel. Where before, in the depressed state, it's very interesting. I was in the depressed state, but I knew that I could feel better. I knew that this was not normal for me. However, when you are in a depressed state, you feel like that is normal, that is the way things are, that is the truth of the matter. And even after I got out of that depression, for a long time, I still felt that depressed state was kind of the truth, which is kind of interesting. Even though I didn't feel depressed anymore, I still felt that part of it. And it took a while for that part to actually disappear. So what did I manifest? Well, I manifested a recovery from the depression. Now, this wasn't chronic depression. This was depression that was brought about from an event that happened in my life. But still, I was able to get rid of it. And how did I get rid of it? Well, I took action. I was open to receiving help, open to receiving, I went to the psychologist. I went to the class on grieving. And I went and was inspired enough to buy this workbook on your inner child work. And I went through that. And that's really what snapped me out of it, got me out of that. So as they say, remember, the answers are within you. You have the ability to find the answers. You just have to be willing to go deeper and accept the answers. That's part of it, being able to accept it. So if you like these stories, you want me to keep telling them, please subscribe. Hit the like button. That lets me know that you are listening. Thanks for watching. Go out and manifest your life.